Hi everyone, this is Julie Bruns. Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. I want you to thrive and be happy, peaceful, and content, no matter where you are on your journey. This podcast shares stories that will show you how it can be done, no matter what your circumstances. You'll be inspired and come away with a new spark of an idea. Never forget, anything is possible. New episodes are released every Wednesday. Subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. This helps others find our content and get happier sooner. To possibility and beyond. So welcome to this episode of the Peace and Possibilities podcast, everyone. I am here with Tricia Cook, and I actually met Tricia. I still haven't met Tricia in person. I met Tricia from a mutual friend several months ago who told me about her and her work, and she's in similar line of training and development like me all these years. And she said, you really need to talk to her. And I emailed you, and you were just so gracious and welcoming, and said, let's talk, and I want to hear about what you're doing, and I loved talking to you. And so I wanted to, and I know you've had a successful business for the last 20 years, and I wanted to find out more about how you came to do what you're doing, and you share some stories with everyone about how you remain happy and stay peaceful and content in doing what you're doing and have been successful in this business and what that means to you. So thanks for joining me, Tricia.
Thank you for having me, Julie.
Oh, you're welcome. So I want to start off with my first question. I know you're in training. I know what you do. If you want to explain a little bit more about that, or if it would make more sense to tell the audience how you saw your career going in the beginning and how you came to this place that you are now running your own successful company. How did that look for you? Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
No. And I applaud and am in awe of the people who know what they want to do and they go for it. I was in school. I was at the University of Michigan. I was in the business school. No real reason why. My dad said it was a good thing to do, so I took business classes. Mm-hmm. I did not have a perfect job that I wanted. I knew I wanted a job that would use my analytical skills and my interpersonal skills. I didn't want a job that was all sales or a job that was all analytics. So I assumed I would end up in something like a high-tech sales at that point.
Okay.
What happened is I ended up in Chicago at a large global bank in a kind of sales banker role. So I was a commercial lender. I used my analytical skills, but I brought in new business. So it was a perfect blend for me. Constantly learning about different industries, constantly honing my interpersonal skills, honing my analytics, and I loved it. I thought it was the best job out there.
Wow, banking, really? That's okay, cool. So I wouldn't have guessed when you said interpersonal skills with analytics. I mean, obviously banking is analytical, but that's not what I would have expected. Okay, so you liked it. You liked the banking in that.
I loved it. I felt like I was learning constantly. I was, one day touring a paper mill and learning all about that company, another day working with a large accounting firm, another day working with a small manufacturer that made parts that they sold to the big four auto companies. It was a great time to learn at a place where they gave you a lot of opportunity to get out in front of the client quickly.
And it sounds like you liked the variety of it. Like you knew you wanted to mesh those two strengths, and you also liked the variety. It sounds like it would have been kind of boring for you if you just had gone in there and done the same thing every day, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you're working in the banking industry, you're using these strengths, and one day you just decide I'd like to have my own business, or you were kind of forced into doing something different, or how did that work?
So it was really interesting. My bank, my very first fall there, they got me involved in recruiting. So for all 15 years that I was there, for a week or so in the fall, I would get involved going to the college campuses and help recruit analysts, which is a great reinforcing job because I love my job, and you're out with these positive students who just want to learn or trying to figure it out, and you're, learning about them and seeing their excitement, and you're selling this job you love, and it just reinforces it all. And I found that it was a great spot that I didn't know about, being in your flow like people talk about when you know your strengths, but I was really in my flow at that point. I felt like I was making a difference. I felt like I was being good to the bank, good to these students, and I really enjoyed it. So I had done that the whole time I was there. And after my first child was born, the bank was very nice and let me go part-time after my first child was born, which was great. I still maintained my relationships with my clients. It was great. But after my second child was born, I was finding it was hard. My kids weren't on the same nap schedule. So it was really hard to give the same level of service to my clients without having a backup person. So the bank approached me to run their analyst program. Since I had been involved in recruiting for it, I ran the program for about 5 years, and I absolutely loved it. That's where I kind of found I loved every aspect of what I was doing. And it's very interesting. Since then, I've kind of learned about the importance of leveraging your own strengths, knowing your strengths and talents. The Marcus Buckingham work that's out there that says every person's area of greatest growth is from their strengths. So I did the Strengths Finder years ago after I already had this job. And my strengths really all pointed to this kind of running an analyst program, developing people, training people, which was shocking to me when I saw it. And it's no wonder I love that job. So I did that job for like 5 years, had my third child, and found it really, at this point, my kids were pretty far apart in age, and it was hard to be part-time and hit all the goals I wanted in my life. I needed some flexibility. So while I was running the training program, I used to bring in people to teach professionalism and business etiquette. And there was one person who I thought did a fantastic job. And I looked at her and I thought, I'm going to do that one day. She was engaging and she was funny. And then she got out of business the next year. So I kept bringing in different people to do the job. And I never felt like they did it the way I wanted. I felt like it was boring, putting people to sleep. The trainees were not feeling like they got anything out of it. I felt like someone was telling them everything they did wrong instead of all celebrating what they did right. So I just said, someday I'm going to do that. And fortunately for me, the person who took over my job after I stayed home gave me a call after a couple of years and said, you said you'd do this someday. We have not found somebody who does this in an engaging way. Why don't you do it for us? So that was in 2003, and I've been doing that ever since. So we help people maximize their potential, is how I would basically say it. We help people feel confident in any sort of professional environment. Some people would call it business etiquette training. We don't like to call it that because nobody wants to take an etiquette class.
Right.
We used to talk about calling it managing your professional brand. And we help people feel more comfortable, whether it's in a networking environment, whether it's figuring out how to run a meeting, whether it's handling the virtual world right now, whether it's just your introductions and your elevator pitches, running a dining situation. So that's what we do. And I love it.
So it's so interesting that the two things that you ended up loving the most, someone suggested that you do. It's kind of funny, instead of just like you were loving what you were doing already. And instead of going for something else, someone said to you, would you do this for us? Like running that program when your second son was born. Okay, I'll try that. And you ended up loving it. And then the other person said, we can't find anyone to do this. You said could you do it? And it's crazy. It's like, it's crazy that you didn't have to go get it, that someone just called you and said, do you want to do this? And it's what you needed at the time you needed it. Why do you think that is? I wouldn't call that luck or coincidence. I don't believe in that. I believe that you got it because you were something you wanted. But what do you attribute it to?
I think it ties to a lot of the work you're doing. Find the passion, find the things you like. And since I love my jobs all the time, or most of the time, you don't love it every day.
Yeah.
But I tried to be positive. I really think attitude is important. I think building relationships, respectful relationships, up, down, sideways, in, out. I always tried to live that. I try to be a positive person. I try to learn what other people are doing. I tried to learn what people are learning in their different roles, what they like about their jobs, what they don't like about their jobs. And so I think I had a positive attitude. So opportunities came my way. I do still feel like it was luck that it came my way, but
luck, what's the saying? Luck favors are prepared. But one of my other podcast conversations was talking about this concept. And it was like, as you were describing, you loved what you were doing. You were concentrating on being positive, and people were seeing that, and that was resonating with people. It gets easier to do the things you want to do because people want to work with people that are what you described, using their strengths, excited about what they're doing. That comes up. You can't really lie about that. That comes across in everything you do. And then who doesn't want to work with people like that? So I don't call it luck. I call it, it's like you're going down the path you should be on, which is why you get these opportunities. So that's so cool that you get to be able to do that. So when they said, will you do this for us? You said, okay. And that's what you've been doing ever since. On your,
Yes.
oh my gosh, that's so cool.
We have been trying to help people feel more comfortable, give people the self-confidence, remind them of things they already know or maybe didn't have a chance to learn,
Hmm.
but remind them of things they already want to know, the little things that make a huge difference, the
Yeah.
little things that open opportunities for them that maybe they had no idea of. Because it used to be a big passion of mine because I would hire the best and the brightest and I put them through this incredible 18-month training program, and then they'd have a setback. And the setback was usually something they had no idea, like their body language was holding them back, or their lack of eye contact was holding them back, or the way they would dine at a business meeting,
Oh,
and
wow.
the things they talk about, recounting their big weekends, things like that were holding them back. And I knew kind of the professionalism that my clients expected, and I
Okay.
knew what I kept having to coach as a manager. So
Okay.
I put this program together kind of thinking, I can help you. And it's
Yeah.
so rewarding because, and I have a couple of other instructors that work with me. Every time we teach, people come up to us and say, that was so helpful. I can do it. I can learn from this. I can incorporate this. I feel empowered. I feel engaged. So what I do is this perfect cycle. I get in and talk to these incredibly excited people and help them, remind them of things they already know, and they leave feeling empowered and engaged, kind of like a lot of the work you do with engagement.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's because you always assume everyone knows what you know. I mean, it's just a natural human tendency, right? So you think, oh, if I'm socially aware, I will notice that this person's talking softer, then I will talk softer. I'll mirror what they're doing. And you just assume everyone knows this, or they learned it throughout in education somewhere along the way. And a lot of people don't. And then you're always surprised when they don't, when you teach them something little like that. And then they can just a little tweak of something, and then their lives open up because of some new thing they learned that is really rewarding. Why wouldn't that be? Yeah, that's so cool.
It's fun.
So what do you've already touched on a couple of the things that you made you successful early on. So your business you've been doing this for 20 years on your own. This is all you've done, right? And you didn't have to go back and get another corporate job. This is your corporate job for
Mhm.
working for yourself, right? What do you think kept you successful all these years? So successful is obviously working for yourselves and being able to pay your bills and live on your own and not have to worry about going back to work for someone. What kept you successful this whole time? What do you think?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it is um, keeping the relationships strong. I kept the relationships from all of my roles uh, as a launching point, all the universities I work with, all the folks I worked with at my bank who then went somewhere else. I actually think it was kind of positive. I'm a positive attitude. I felt like I can do this. And I kind of needed to do it, you know? So my husband is also self-employed. He's an architect. And in 2008, architecture work dried up. So I needed, if I wanted my kids to go to college and I needed to step it up. Because until then, I really didn't market it. It was always just word of mouth. In the training industry, as you know, people kind of hear about something and they tell somebody and they tell somebody, and that was great. But in 2008, I really needed to kind of increase my efforts there and just kind of reach out. And my grandfather was very wise. And he always said, networking is not about what can they do for you. You need to get to know what people do and see how you can help them first. And if you can help people first, they'll think about you. Or you can feel comfortable asking them for help.
Yeah,
So I
it's
tried to
great
do both.
advice. Yeah, it's great advice. One of the things I read, this is a long time ago and it's not new information, but like if you can, what problem can you solve? What can you help someone with? Coming with a solution instead of a problem. We taught our kids that for a long time. Like, I don't like this. It's like, come to me with, or I've mentored younger people too, in the corporate world. And I'll say, when you go to your boss and say, I don't like this, or I don't like that, which is how some of this started for me, going to whether it's someone in the corporate world or someone in your personal life and saying, I have a problem, and then just stopping there, that's not a conversation that's really fun to have, whether you're working with them or you're living with them. But going and saying, I have a problem, I've been thinking about it. Here's some solutions I thought of. Can we talk about it more? Or what do you think about this? It goes so much further than just saying, I have a problem. And people think you're going to solve a problem for them, who wouldn't want to talk to you, right?
Well,
So that's a brilliant way of thinking about it. Your grandfather was very wise, but I don't think enough young people even know that. Just, I've taught my kids that for a long time, and whenever I can tell people that, I tell them that, but it really is the truth. You walk up to someone and say, I have a problem with this. They're like, why would they even want to keep talking to you? Now they have another problem. They already have a list of problems. So yeah, that's great advice. Your grandfather was very wise.
I know he was.
That's awesome. So next question. What advice would you have for someone searching for a meaningful career? So whether they are, younger, like your sons and my sons, early 20s and late 20s, or people that are even in midlife, 40s and 50s, something searching for a meaningful career or something they can do that can inspire other people or help other people. What would you say? What would you say to those people?
I think that is a great piece of advice. I think it's a great question, and I don't officially know my advice. My advice would be, I wish I did more of the stuff that my dad and my mom told me to do, and that I tell my kids to do, and that they don't. Early on, my parents both said, you need to be having these informational coffees with people. You need to learn what people do. My dad even made me, set up a couple of interviews with people to learn what they did and what skills they needed and what they needed to learn and what they liked and what they didn't like. And I did what I was required to do. I wish I had done more of that. And that's what I would tell anybody now. When you're trying to figure out what you're doing, instead of looking at all these as, can you give me a job? It's, look through your alumni group, using LinkedIn, and find the alumni group people that are in an industry that you think you might like, and call them up and just ask them about their job. What do you do? And it needs to be authentic. What do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Not just how can I sound good so they'll give me a job?
Right.
It's like, figure out what they do, what they like, what they learn, what they don't like, and see if that appeals to you. And then I honestly do think I did learn so much by learning about my strengths. If I'd known those earlier, maybe I would have made these choices earlier, doing some of that strengths research. It just gives you the self-confidence to approach other situations.
Amen. I completely agree. I didn't know anything about Strength Finders till I was probably in my early 40s, maybe.
Oh, me too.
Was the first time I heard about that book. And then as far as there's a VIA strengths, characteristics and strengths survey you can take. It's a free assessment and you can learn about your strengths there too. But you do those things in high school and college, like, oh, go take this little, test and see what you like doing, what kind of job you should have, but not in that way. And I think still even then, like, what you like, but you're not really taking those things seriously. But I wish someone had pulled me aside at like 28 and said, there's this assessment, take this. And you already know yourself, but like, let's just dial it in a little bit more. Because I agree, if I had known that what my strengths were sooner and I could have pinpointed things a little bit more clearly, I probably would have been maybe doing this 10 years earlier. And wouldn't that have been awesome?
Yeah. And I think it's not even, you don't even have to even know your strengths. If people don't want to do that, but figure out when you're in your flow, figure out the things you love. And I worry that people are like, well, I'm a biology major, so I can't even look at jobs over here. No.
Yeah.
What do you like doing? What energizes you? Do you like solving problems? Do you like crisis situations? Are you good on your feet? Are you good at managing conflict? Can you bring people together? I don't care if you're a journalism major, a biology major, or an engineer. Find a job that lets you grow in the things that make you feel good.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's awesome. I couldn't agree more. So it's the strengths, it's knowing your strengths, and then it's knowing, I love the informational interviewing too, because that was just a new concept when I don't even think when I was graduating college that people were talking about that, but it's, they probably call it something else now, the informational interviewing, but I have been telling my son who graduated from college last year, same thing, just say, I'd like 15 minutes, and it's not they're not doing you a favor, it's you doing them a favor. I just want to know a little bit more about what you do. I'm interested in that career and I'd love to chat with you. Can I buy you a coffee? And then, so they don't have to like taking time out for you, someone they don't even know. But I had him doing a lot of that last summer, trying to find a job. I said, eventually something will click. But when these people know that you really just want to have a couple of questions for them and it's going to guide you a little bit, they probably wish they would have had someone similar doing that for them when they were younger. So don't be afraid to ask. People love talking about themselves, and especially when they're successful and they got what they wanted. how they did it is always great to be sharing that. So that's it's free. It doesn't take a long time, and everyone's so accessible with the internet, LinkedIn, and social media that you don't really have any excuse. You just have to ask,
And
Yeah,
early on, for the whole figuring out your career thing, you don't even have to bring them a cup of coffee. You can just,
yeah,
for these alumni people, you can reach over and do a phone conversation when you genuinely just want to learn, what do you actually do as a brand manager? What do you actually do as a fundraiser for University of Michigan? Like,
yeah,
what does your day look like? What do
yeah,
you like? What do you not like? I mean, that's all. That's all it has to be. Now, when you're actually trying to find the actual job and you've pinpointed it, then I think it's really important to do those. Can I tell me your Starbucks order and I'll bring you your cup of coffee on Thursday morning. You tell me the time.
yeah,
Be efficient with their time. Don't make them meet you at Starbucks. Bring their order to them. Have your
yeah,
questions. As you said, everyone likes to talk about themselves. So
yeah,
listen twice as much as you speak, and ask genuine questions that you are authentically interested in. And again,
yes,
my very wise grandfather, coming back to pop up, said, he told me when I started my job that I'd need to find a mentor. And I was like, I don't know how to find a mentor. Pop
yeah,
up. How do I do that?
yeah,
He said, it is very easy from the first day of your career until the end of it. When you find somebody you admire or you could learn something from, you just ask them for 10 or 15 minutes on their calendar to pick their brain on that topic. You don't call and say, will you be my mentor? You say,
yes,
you seem to know so much about employee engagement. I'm going to be on a project that involves that. May I bring you a cup of coffee on Thursday and pick your brain on that?
yeah.
Because when you ask people for advice, they kind of look out for you.
It's a great idea. Very smart, because when you say, will you be my mentor, then it's like this extra responsibility, this extra, yeah, like, oh, it's going to be a time suck, whatever it is. And then people aren't as drawn to, they probably are still a little bit flattered, I would guess. But yeah, it just seems like a big commitment. But if you just say, I would love to pick your brain. I learned that again in the last 10 years. I wish I had learned that in the first, 10 when I was doing the same thing. Like this, it's not that complicated. I think people put too much thought into it instead of just doing what comes naturally, which is, hey, I have a couple of questions for you. Can I pick your brain?
But
Yeah.
then it is up to you to turn that relationship into a productive relationship. They say in business, to make any relationship kind of productive, it takes 3 to 5 interactions. So it is up to me to reach out to that person. It is up to
Yes.
me to thank them for their time. And it is up to me to get back to them and tell them how I used that information and how it benefited me. It is up to me to then, if I saw an article of something they were interested in the Wall Street Journal, to pass it on, to maybe
Yeah.
buy them breakfast 3 months later, to ask for some more things. And then once you get to that 3 to 5 times, then it starts going back and forth more.
Like the follow up. Yeah, it's great advice too. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. So many good tips. My final question for you: what, if anything, do you wish you had learned earlier in your career that maybe would have made your career more satisfying earlier? That's a good way to put it.
I wish I had known more about the power of body language, that as it contributes to our own self-confidence. I wish I had known that the imposter syndrome is something many of us feel, and not let it keep me from going for things because I thought I wasn't there yet when I
Mhm.
probably was ready.
Mhm.
I wish, hmm, I guess that's it. I think I missed a few opportunities by thinking I wasn't ready, that maybe I should have jumped on. But then again, I really don't, because I was able to structure my career for the flexibility I needed at different times.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know. I
Yeah,
think
no, it's
I wish
good.
that whole lean in book. I know it's controversial to some people, but kind of the power of putting myself out there a bit more. I wish I had done a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I don't know if you agree. I mean, so if you read Lean In, you probably do, but a lot of people will say, there's a quote about women that apply for jobs and men that apply for jobs,
Yes.
and how men have 10% of the
Mhm.
traits and of the skills. And like, I'm a shoo-in, and women will have like 90%. They're like, I don't have enough. I'm not going to get the job. I don't have everything they want in there. And I think we just second guess ourselves more, and we
Mhm.
are I don't know, it's not about being analytical. It's more just about like, yeah, second guessing and wondering and do you? And I think if we had just if we could lean in, learn to lean in a little bit earlier and take
Mhm.
a cue from the men in our lives that say, like with the confidence, like, I'll just figure this out and this is what I need and take it or leave it kind of thing. We're always just afraid to do those things. And if we had, I wish so much that I learned that in my 20s.
Mhm.
I definitely would have been further along in my career. I don't regret how I got to where I am because I don't think I would have all the wisdom and knowledge I have now had I not been through what I
Right.
was all along the way. But I do wish I had some of those tools, mentorship and picking people's brains and all of that, and not second guessing myself earlier because the, the beauty of all that is that you can make a difference sooner. So that's what I keep going back to. Had I known all that earlier, it's not about success for me. It's about I would have been able to help more people along the way.
Mhm.
And not had to struggle so much teaching myself things or thinking I didn't have what I needed or whatever. Being able to help my kids even sooner had I known those lessons sooner. So that's what I think about when I think about what I wish I had learned sooner. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I think I would add one more thing. While I knew to develop my mentor relationships, I wish I had earlier on thought about. I think I actually was lucky enough to have a sponsor and a wonderful sponsor who looked out for me and gave me clients that had high visibility and put me in charge of projects where I would get a good level of visibility and nice clients and um, learn different skill sets. So I was lucky enough to be blessed with somebody who took an interest in me and actually sponsored me and used her capital to put me up for opportunities. That is one thing I think when I go back to the 20s, when you ask me what advice I would ask people to really try and develop sponsor relationships, not just mentor relationships, but sponsor relationships where it's transactional. You're given 110% to help that person succeed, and you are their protege, and they're opening opportunities for you and tossing your name in the hat. I wish
Okay.
I would tell people to do more of that in their 20s.
So when you define my final question, then I guess would be so I've heard the term sponsorship before, but in business, how much different is it than mentorship? It's another level of
Yeah.
commitment.
Yeah, there's a great book out there by Sylvia Ann Hewlett called "Forget a Mentor, Find a Sponsor,"
Okay.
um, and they say that kind of sponsorship is kind of like a mentor relationships on steroids. She actually says it's truly a transactional relationship. You don't ever say, "Will you be my sponsor?" But you kind of figure out what that person needs to get ahead, what their goals are, and you help them, and you work 110%, and you give everything you can to help them achieve their goals. And then they appreciate that, and they know your capabilities and your skill set, and they're confident in what you can do. So they toss your name in the hat for new opportunities, new projects, new visible things that get you aware. They also have your back, though. If you're not quite ready and you goofed, they take responsibility for it, and then they teach you. So I think every person needs multiple mentors. Every person needs a male and a female mentor. We all need men. We all need women. Whether you're a man or a woman, I encourage when I work with young people, find a male mentor, find a female mentor. Build these relationships. And then when you kind of find that you kind of know people who are moving up and who opportunities come to. And if they have the role that you're looking for or that you're aspiring to, or they've had learning opportunities or projects that you'd like, seek out what you can learn from them and offer to do additional help for them. And it
Yeah.
flow into a sponsor relationship, which if you look at, I work with a lot of executives and they will say, yeah, they actually have benefited from sponsors.
Nice. All right, good. I'm glad that you just taught me something new. I hadn't heard of, well, I've heard of them, but I didn't realize how different they were from mentors. So that's cool. So thank you for that book recommendation. Thank you, Tricia. This has been very enlightening. I learned a lot of new things, and it was nice talking to you about what you've learned. And I know that people are going to be able to hear this and get some new insight for sure, and then have some things to follow up with and say, okay, I can try this, I can try that. I love that there's actionable things that they can do. It's not just dreaming about something. It's about these are things you can do to help yourself right now, no matter where you are in your career. And if you do this a little bit earlier, you can get there sooner. So I appreciate that. It was
Thank you.
really nice talking to you.
Well, I like all you're doing to help people feel more fulfilled in their lives and in their careers, and we all need it.
Thank
So keep it up.
you. Thank you. I will. Thanks for listening. If you love this content, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you found us on. You can get all my social media links in the description below. Help us keep the momentum going so that every person can live their lives happily, doing work they love.